Want to know how to save hundreds of dollars on your next car camping trip to New Zealand? Well, yeah, of course. I'm Peter from carcampingtips.com, and I'm here to share with you how you can save a lot of money on your next trip to New Zealand. So there are a lot of tips out there how to save money while camping in general, and there's some tips for saving money while in New Zealand specifically, but this one tip can save you hundreds of dollars, and it's super simple. It's easy to overlook. So the tip is, don't go with a big rental car company. Instead, go with a small, more local rental car company. Now, when you go to New Zealand, you'll notice in the airport there are several companies that you can rent from, and it might be in your best interest to not just pick the one that you're familiar with. For example, a few rental car companies that are prominent in New Zealand airports, international airports especially, are Avis, Hertz, and Enterprise. Those are all companies that you see in the US, but the trick is, don't go with these big companies. You're going to end up spending a lot more money. So I'm going to show you an example of a trip that is very reasonable. Like, this is a route that you would, it's likely that someone would take this, and we'll show you the amount of money, the difference you end up spending if you go up with the bigger company.
All right, just to show you an example of the savings you can make by going with a smaller rental car company, we're going to show you an example. We're at the New Zealand Hertz website. You can tell because of the hertz.co.nz, or NZ as they would say. And we are starting from Auckland and ending up in Wellington. So this is from the North Island, the top of the North Island, to the south part of the North Island, the bottom of the North Island. And we're going to go from December 2nd to December 16th. That's 2 weeks in December. The dates are flipped from what we're used to in America, so that's day, month, year. All right, let's look at what the price would be for that. Okay, so for a Toyota Corolla hatchback sedan, that's 1,696 New Zealand dollars, and that comes out to 1,100 US dollars. Let's select that. And let's go to Omega Car Rentals and find a similar reservation. So this is from Auckland to Wellington, December 2nd to December 16th. One note about this particular rental is that these are not directly at the airport. They're nearby, but they service the airport through shuttles. And let's do a search. Okay, and we have the Premium Elite, which is the Toyota Corolla hatchback. This is the 2013-2016 model. Let's hit continue. And we have $658 as the subtotal. So that comes out to 429 US dollars. And so you can already see that now you're saving hundreds of dollars just by going with a smaller rental car company. But now let's consider the insurance cost. So in New Zealand, a little bit of a tutorial on New Zealand insurance. So many rental car companies offer basic insurance right out the gate. You don't have to pay any additional money, but you have a very high insurance excess, which in America we would call that a deductible, or an out-of-pocket expense limit. So this means that if you get into an accident and your car's totaled or whatever, the max you'd have to pay is $2,500. And so that's for no additional coverage at all. But if you pay 18 New Zealand dollars every day, then that would bring it to $0 of insurance excess. So with doing that, we see that the total cost is 917 New Zealand dollars, which comes out to about 600 US dollars. So that's for 2 weeks with full insurance coverage. So that's $600. Let's go back to Hertz and see what that equivalent coverage would be. So this is, remember, 1,100 US dollars. And if we add Super Cover, which brings us to zero excess, the same, so an equivalent plan, you'll be paying $2,300 and $2,340 in New Zealand dollars, which comes out to 1,526 New Zealand dollars. I'm sorry, 1,526 US dollars. So from 600 to 1,526, that's almost 1,000 US dollars that you would be saving from going with a smaller rental car company. And so there's many of these rental car companies in New Zealand. Omega Rental Cars is smaller. It's not tiny. They are in New Zealand and Australia, and they have lots of locations. So they're doing really well, but they're not as internationally known as Hertz, and you definitely pay for a premium for getting a rental car from a bigger rental car company. So one note also, kind of a tip about these rental car companies is you'll notice that they are listing the year. A lot of American rental car companies don't do this. They typically, when you expect a newer vehicle, but with these cars, for example, almost half the price is this car, and these will range from 2005 to 2012. So you could get a significantly older car if you wanted to save a lot of money, and they still come with the same insurance plans if you desire. And so those are a great option if you're trying to save a lot of money. But they do offer newer models. So anyway, that's kind of an interesting part about New Zealand car companies, is that they allow for they rent out older vehicles with success, because people want to save money. So that's a quick comparison between two. Like I said, there are many different options, and we'll discuss how you can find those rental car companies that get to the locations that you want to go to.
So in the example, we talk about Omega Car Rentals, and we really enjoyed this company. We would definitely rent from them again, but there's tons of these local companies. And so really the tip that you want to really aim for is to go for a smaller, more local company, and even better to get one that's not at the airport. It may seem counterintuitive, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So some tools that you can use, there's comparenewzealandrentalcars.com and carflexi.com. There's several of these aggregators that do a search for many rental car companies in the area, and with these kinds of tools you can really actually another one, kayak.com. These will help you get a lower price than if you were to go with just a name brand rental car company. So some things to consider when you're trying to decide on which rental car company. I really highly suggest not to just pick the first one that's cheap that you find, but instead to make sure that it services the locations that you need. And they also provide services such as shuttle to and from the airport. That's critical, or else that will make your rental experience a lot more complicated. So first off is location. Make sure that they are going to be from at the starting point and the end point that you want to be at. And the next question to ask is, what about the insurance offered? Is their insurance reasonable, and is it clear what the expectations are? And lastly, the right vehicle type that it's offered. Now, me and my wife, when we went to New Zealand, we opted for a sedan, and that worked really well for us. We stayed in a tent. Many people want a bigger vehicle. Sometimes they go with an SUV, which you can sleep in at the right locations, not everywhere. And there's camper vans, which range in their capabilities, and these are also going to vary in price. So anyway, those are all kind of factors that you want to consider: the location, the insurance, and as well as the type of vehicle that's offered. So some of the concerns that you may have with going with a smaller rental company, we'll go over a couple of them. One is trustworthiness. It's a brand that you have probably never heard of because it may just be in New Zealand and in Australia, and so you're wondering, is this car going to break down? Am I going to experience issues? That's a valid concern. I can tell you from personal experience, that big brand doesn't necessarily mean big service. I went with a bigger rental car company, one that everyone's familiar with in the US, in New Zealand, and there were some slight complications, fairly large complications at the end of the trip that I had to sort out with the rental car company. And this process took me months of emails and phone calls and a lot of headaches. So don't expect, just because you go with a bigger brand and more expensive, that you're going to get bigger service. So secondly, if you look on Google reviews, it's really hard to look at those reviews objectively, because usually when people have a bad experience, they make sure and review. But it can be a good way to gauge what's a common experience that many people are having. Omega Car Rentals, actually, they have really good reviews, even in spite of I'm sure the many one-star reviews that they have of a poor experience. But that's very common with any rental car company all over the world. So don't let a few negative reviews gauge your decision, but look for trends, look for patterns that can help you decide which rental car company to go with. And the last tip that will help you save a lot of money, this kind of is the big differentiator, is to make sure you get one that's not directly at the airport. This is true for travel all over the world, but especially in New Zealand, that if you get a rental car company that is directly at the airport, in other words, like right at the terminal, you can see your rental car company, they have to pay more fees, and they charge those fees to you. You have to pay a higher price. So the trick is to get a rental car company that's nearby that gets you that lower price. Of course, make the decision based on the price and not just on the look and whether it's in the airport or not. But typically, if you get one that's nearby but not at the airport, you'll save a lot of money. So some other money-saving tips besides the rental car itself related to the rental car is to, we'll go through a few of them. First being rent an older car. Now in New Zealand, it's kind of interesting. You don't see this as much in the States, but they have many rental car companies that give you the option of renting older cars that have been in service longer. We did this on our trip to New Zealand. Our car was a few years older than we would be typically used to in the States. We had a great experience. We didn't have any issues. And the rental car companies they don't want you to break down in the middle of nowhere, as that is a bad experience. They don't, and that would hurt their reputation. So they do their best to maintain the cars and make sure they're in good condition. That being said, again, look at those reviews. Make sure that the company doesn't have a huge trend of giving you lemon vehicles to drive, and you should be fine. And the second one is to sleep in a tent. Now, we talked about those different vehicle options. If your group size supports it, sleeping in a tent can save you a lot of money, and not to mention headache. Going with the camper van, it opens up some options, especially if it's a self-contained, meaning it has a toilet. But it also can close some options where you're not able to camp in some locations or drive certain locations. So weigh your options carefully, but ultimately you are probably going to save money if you opt for a smaller vehicle and opt for campsites with sleeping in a tent instead. And lastly is often these car companies, they have a rental price for an additional GPS unit, and you can actually get away with not doing this and using your phone. The person driving must not use a phone. That's enforced very strictly in New Zealand, so make sure that the driver never touches the phone. But if you have a passenger, or if you only operate the phone when the car is pulled off to the side safely, then you can do this. But the phone, you can actually download maps offline, and I highly recommend to do this in New Zealand because the cell service, the places you want to go to, the cell service is spotty. And so downloading those maps will help you be able to navigate even if there is no cell service. So highly recommended. I actually wrote a quick tutorial on how to do this for Android at carcampingtips.com/nztips. And not only will you find that tutorial there, but you'll also find over 30 tips on how to have an awesome car camping experience in New Zealand. There's some great resources and stuff that we learned in our experiences going, and so highly recommend you check that out. And so thank you for watching. We would love to hear your feedback on a rental car company that you found in New Zealand that you absolutely loved, that had good service and good prices. Let us know. Thanks.